So Damon, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
When you think of cybersecurity or cyber risk, what's the primary issue that you're dealing with when you're speaking with corporations and boards of what they should be concerned about?
The biggest change that we're working with right now is not from the client side, but from the threat side. When you go back 4 or 5 years and we were dealing with different hacking crews, they were very immature, almost think a startup mentality. And in the last 5 years, they've very much matured into enterprises of their own right. And so now when you're working with groups, it's no longer working with small, if you're gonna think of like a street gang, very unsophisticated. They've basically reached the level of organized crime, very efficient, very careful about how they go about doing it, and they figured out how to monetize everything. So we're not seeing a lot of the normal mistakes we used to see during hacking. They've become very, very proficient professional.
How is the nature of cyber risk changing in today's environment?
The big one's gonna be the visibility within the organization. If I go back to the beginning of my career and I had to go talk to a client around security, I was usually talking to a system administrator, somebody very, very technical. A year or two later, I was talking with maybe a CISO. A year later, I'd be talking with CIOs, and now I'm meeting with CEOs, CFOs, audit directors, and boards. Exactly. And it's the escalation of the view of the risk from being this very technical issue that needs to be handled in the data center to a full enterprise level risk that needs to be handled at the highest levels of the organization.
Why do you think it takes organizations so long to detect the breaches as they're coming in? Because of the sophistication of the hackers?
It's a bit of a mix. While there are very sophisticated attackers out there, it's a typical 80-20 rule, just like anything else. 80% of the attackers out there are going to be pretty low level. The issue is the low-level attackers can be pseudo-advanced attackers because on the underground market, they can buy very advanced automated tools that can let them act in an advanced way. That only gets them so far, and then they fall back on their own skills, which in many ways are very low level. They make a lot of noise, they should be easily caught. The problem is the advanced tools they can get a hold of can get them through the first layer of defenses in an organization and get them internal. Most organizations are only prepared to deal with threats that are hitting that outside boundary of their environment. If an attacker can get past that, most organizations, to be blunt, are naked inside. They have very little monitoring, very little prevention. And that goes to the nature of the presentation I'm doing here, which is much more around how do you take the controls you would normally audit and extend them throughout the environment to deal with those type of attackers that can get over the first wall, but once they get in, they're still fairly novice.
Right.